Good morning, my name is Jemima. I'm from Smaklima, Panapur, and I stand on the government side. And I will be starting my debate speech in 3, 2, 1. As the leader of government, I stand on the motion in which this House supports a permanent move to online tertiary education, in which people who have completed high school going to a further education will be studying online in websites, ebooks, Khan Academy, Gmeets, and Zooms. Imagine having to go highs and lows to find a place to stay, and renting trucks or cars, buying books, to buying boxes to help you move in. And once you move in, maybe your dorm roommate isn't the person you think they are. That itself is very money consuming. But fear not, because as soon as universities or other institutions move into online, this worry is no more. And again, education will always come with a price, whether it be money, blood, sweat, tears, time. But here, online tertiary education will come in a cheaper price, or tuition. Well, the institution, how this works is that the institution does not need to pay for electricity, for water, for Wi-Fi, etc. Even something as little as markers. And this doesn't even apply to just the school, because it will also apply to the institution's dormitory, for example. And these fundings can instead be used to send out physical learning tools or props to students instead. And this can be very helpful, as labs are not going to be used labs in schools are not going to be used, as students have moved online. And this way, the tuition can be cheaper as well. I've read of a university brochure a couple days ago, and they promoted their cheap college that only costs $10,000. But then when you include other expenses such as meals, housing, and also transportation, it will total in about $30,000. And that is just not accessible enough. Talking about accessibility, this online tertiary education will be very accessible for multiple actors. In this case, chronically ill students and disabled students, which they can learn from anywhere, like their hospital or their home, as they don't need to travel far or walk, because most campuses aren't accessible for them. And then citizens in rural areas don't have to travel far to attain their tertiary education. It's not going to be expensive for their transportation, and they don't need to rent a new place, as I mentioned before. And they can still stay at the comfort of their own homes with people they're familiar with. Next are the caregivers or parents who need extra time to pay attention to their family members, like their babies, for example. This can also apply to professors, not just students, because this way they're not going to actually multitask. But this can just help because they don't need to go to 2 places or more in one day, and they don't have to sacrifice maybe caregiving just to study or just to work. And this also works vice versa. And next are also part-time workers who need extra money to fund their educations, for example. They don't need to go far to just study. They can just study comfortably at their own home, as they don't need to travel much, because traveling takes lots of time. And how can online tertiary education work? Well, obviously, they will. Students and professors will rely on technology, and since technology is improving, I'm sure you have seen those Apple VR glasses. Those can actually be used for practical schoolwork instead of just games, which is very productive, and they can learn specific techniques to learn for food technology, for also like chemistry labs, physics labs. And you might wonder, but they won't really know what it's going to be like in the working world. Well, again, universities will send out like props or tools for them to actually get the hands-on feel, not the actual tool, but they can get the hands-on feel, the texture, and how it's going to be like, the mechanism for them to work it out. And this way, they can be successful in their working career when they need to do practical work. And next is that they can also do DIY projects, which is for like tools as well, and this can actually improve their creativity. They can find what tools they need for to study, to help, and they can just find it themselves. And worrying about time zones, well, there are night schools around. There are also night schools around here, around institutions. For example, how Lorelai Gilmore was able to attain her business degree from night schools, but in this case, we don't need to ride buses or drive cars to go to school, because we can just study from our own home. And I hope that judges you can propose to my arguments, as again this will be more sustainable, and they don't need more sustainable. Thank you for listening to my speech.